Welcome to our new podcast. This is Sideline Sports. My name's Ethan. I'm your co-host. This is my co-host Owen. We'll be going over NFL, NBA, and specifically this week we'll be going over Week 1 for the NFL season and previewing Week 2. So let's just start by going over Week 1 really quickly. Ravens Chiefs. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I feel like the game went pretty much exactly as expected. Mahomes is just on another level. I don't think the Ravens played especially bad. Their O-line was pretty terrible. Lamar was definitely running for his life, but in the end, it's just Mahomes is on another level right now.
No, yeah, I feel that. I feel like the Ravens are like getting overhated for this game because I think they still have a great team. I liked Isaiah Likely this week, but obviously it's your first week and you're playing in Arrowhead. Like, there's not much you can do in that situation. They were gonna lose that game probably regardless of that last play. Lamar did miss that last throw, which
Yeah.
really sucks. So, we got a big game here. Packers Eagles. Lots of storylines. Big thing, Jordan Love getting hurt. I think the Packers played well this game, but I know that for the next 4 weeks, they're not going to be anything with Malik Willis. So, especially if you have the wide receivers on your fantasy like Jaden Reed or Christian Watson, I definitely fade them for the next few weeks. I don't know how serious his injury is, Jordan Love, but it looked really bad. So, I don't know if he's going to be able to get back to the same shape as he was, but at least it's not season ending. So,
Yeah.
Cardinals, Bills. I know Josh Allen, obviously, and Marvin Harrison, big storylines there. You got any thoughts on Marvin Harrison not having any targets?
I think he'll be fine. I mean, everyone knows about that big miss when Marv is running down the sideline,
Yeah.
like butt naked there. Um, But yeah, I think Marv will be fine. If you have him on your fantasy team, don't panic. I don't think it's going to be like Odell, Jamar Chase, like off rip. He's going to start up, but I think second half of the season, especially, I mean, they got to throw to someone. They have Trey McBride, but other than that, they don't have a lot. Um, they're going to rely on James Conner, and Tyler's rushing a little bit, but they got to throw to him eventually. And he's just too good to not demand targets.
No, yeah, I agree. And I feel like the Bills defense isn't getting enough credit for what they did that week. And
Yeah,
also yesterday in Thursday Night Football, we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think the Bills defense is definitely better than people like
yeah, they're
expected,
for real.
especially like losing Jordan Poyer, like losing all their guys. And
Exactly.
okay, this is the biggest upset of the week, in my opinion. Patriots Bengals. I don't I don't know how we're Patriots fans. I don't know how we pulled that one off.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots defense is legit. I think people really wrote them off last year. Um, Even last year, after the Judon injury, after Gonzalez was out, they still were a top half of the league unit. I think, I mean, we got rid of Judon, but we got Gonzalez back, and he really like reminded people how good he is. I know Jamar Chase was coming off somewhat of a holdout or a hold in, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is an elite wide receiver, and Christian Gonzalez, for the most part, really locked him down. Um, he really limited his play after the catch, run after the catch, which is what makes Chase so good. And I think people really forgot how good this Pats defense really is in shutting down the Bengals week 1.
Yeah, I thought losing Judon would really affect just the defense in general. Like, obviously I love Cargo. I mean, he's great. I think he's going to be a top 5 corner this year. But yeah, like he held Jamar to 3 catches, 14 yards, I think. I think the big thing was Joe Burrow didn't look like Joe Burrow still. Like he was still
Yeah,
not comfortable in the pocket. Not having T Higgins last week definitely hurt them. But I feel like if you're a Patriots fan, don't get too excited, especially because if you do end up having a great season for us this year is probably gonna be like 7-10. So nothing really that special. But it's a good first win under Mayo. So that's exciting having Mayo with the first win.
right there.
Next, Vikings Giants. This is kind of the Giants just suck. Like there's no other way to put it. The Giants are just terrible. They made Sam Darnold look like actually like a valid quarterback one.
Yeah,
I
it's
will say he would Darnold was like actually looked pretty good. I mean, he has Jefferson there. Aaron Jones looked really good. Um,
yeah. I mean, I don't think Sam Darnold really has to do all that much in this offense. The Vikings O line looked amazing. They
yes,
paid
yeah,
Christian Darrisaw big money in the offseason, and that's looking like it turned out phenomenal. He looks great in that first game.
yeah,
Um, Again, it's the Giants. Their defense is supposed to be their strength, but I mean, it's really nothing special.
exactly, yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, Jefferson, like the Vikings still have a decent amount of weapons, so Sam Darnold just has to be mid, and they can be
exactly.
all right. And then, I mean, Daniel Jones just threw the game away. That guy's absolutely trash.
Hey, he pulled K Adams though, so that
That's
that's
true.
I mean he's winning.
That's true.
Yeah, I think Giants are definitely going to be a bottom five team this year. I don't think there's any question about that. I think the
I'd say that,
Vikings
yeah.
with McCarthy could have been a wild card team. I'm not high on them anymore, even though like they have Jefferson, best receiver in football, but there's only so much he's going to be able to do. Um, Next up we have Caleb Williams' debut, Bears versus Titans. Um, this game made me so mad, just like kind of like tuning in and watching it, because I see the Titans are up, and I thought there's no way they're going to lose this game because Caleb Williams first. Caleb Williams didn't even pass for 100 yards. They didn't score an offensive touchdown, and they scored 17 unanswered. That shouldn't happen. I know it's a rookie head coach, but that should never happen. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I know that. Yeah,
It's a hard game to judge. I feel like we didn't really get to see a whole lot of who the teams actually are because the game was just like complete chaos. Like it's not going to be like that for either team for the rest of the season. I
yeah,
think Will Levis, he still has potential. I don't expect a lot from him, but I don't think we can really judge him off that first game. Um, the the Bears defense looks great, obviously.
yeah,
Um, Not that the Titans offense is great either, but yeah. And then Caleb obviously wasn't asked to do a whole lot at all. Um, I think it was interesting how much they used Romeo Dunze.
yeah,
And it'll be interesting going forward, seeing how they use those three receivers there, because this offense has so much potential. So we'll see this week how they do against hopefully a more normal defense, like more normal game script. So maybe we'll get to see a bit more of Caleb's potential and how that offense runs.
yeah. I love this game coming up. Houston versus the Bears. I think it's just two powerhouse offenses just going at it, and obviously their defenses are really good. I love the Bears offense this year, and obviously the Texans. We'll talk about them in a little bit. They're gonna be something this year. Um, I hate talking about this game, but Saints Panthers. I don't. I just wanted to be clear. Saints fans have nothing to be happy about with this game. The Panthers are just they're terrible. Like the Giants are bad. The Panthers are a different level. You cannot be giving up 30 points to the Saints in the first
Yeah,
half.
it's ridiculous. That game was over before it started. Um, I mean, the Panthers are terrible, yeah, but I still believe it's only up from here, really. I think Dave Canales is a good coach. I think he
Yeah,
proved it in Seattle 2 years ago, and then he obviously uh, worked some magic with Tampa last year. But Canales is a good coach. He has a complicated system, so it might take a while, and then obviously everything relies on Bryce Young taking that next big step. But
yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't get too high on the Saints after this. I think they just beat up on a bad team, and that's about
yeah.
it.
I don't even hate the Saints that much. I think the Saints actually are like a half decent team. They're like a middle of the pack team, but I don't think they're anything like they're not. This is the highest they're gonna score all year for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
they're gonna
they'll
be
beat
playing
up on
much better
bad
defense.
teams. They're going to lose
Exactly.
to any good teams.
What do you think about Chris Olave? Only with like 3 catches, 11 yards.
It's tough to say. Um, it's good that they're using him more in motion this year compared to last year because that's really he really strives or excels in motion. It's good that they're moving him around the field instead of just placing him on that outside on one side. Um, again, he'll have more targets. There's no way they can put up that point output and only give him 2 targets. Um, but really, I'm not too high on Olave this year either. That offense, especially against better teams, is not going to score a lot. So I think he'll be, if you're playing in a PPR format, he'll be a solid wide receiver too. Maybe a few low 1 weeks if he scores. But really, he's high floor. At least he should be. Um, I think
Very
last
low
week against the
ceiling.
Panthers was just kind of a weird game.
Yeah,
Yeah, but low ceiling for sure.
I definitely feel like last week was really weird passing wise. I saw something about like this is the lowest passing volume week of like in like years for the NFL.
Definitely.
So just the whole league, I feel like yeah, it was strange. Steelers Falcons. I think this was the most underrated game of the week. There's so many storylines with this game, but also the defense was amazing for both sides. Um, yeah, I don't know if you saw Bijan got way more carries this game than any time last year. Besides, I think this tied his career high. Yeah, any comments on that?
As for the Bijan thing, I mean, I had Bijan in fantasy last year, so I can definitely speak to what Arthur Smith was doing with him and Kyle Pitts, for that matter, is just criminal. This Falcons offense has so many weapons in Pitts, London, Bijan. Now they have Kirk. Definitely Kirk's mobility was looking really limited in this first game. Hopefully that improves. He's still, I think he's like 8 or 9 months removed from the Achilles. So
Yeah,
hopefully he'll trend up and get a bit more of that mobility back throughout the season. Kirk definitely didn't look great in that first game, but I don't think he has to be anything special. I think if he's a competent, like average passer, the weapons can do the rest for this offense. And then this Falcons defense definitely does look really good. They
yeah,
have AJ Terrell on the outside. He is as good as any corner in the league right now. Um, this team has potential for sure.
yeah. I really do like the Falcons this year. Definitely a little worried about Kirk. He did not look good at all that game. The Steelers, I think I really was kind of impressed with Justin Fields. Um, that middle like 10 to 20 yard range, he's hitting like every throw. He's being able to run out the pocket. Obviously, it wasn't like a high scoring game, so he wasn't able to put up like those type of numbers, but he didn't make that many mistakes. I think he might have had one fumble that they might have recovered. Um, Other than that, Najee looked really good. I mean, Najee's gonna be a big volume guy, so if you have him in fantasy, I like him at flex every week, honestly, because I mean he's Warren didn't get like any snaps last week. He's also coming off a hamstring injury, I think. Um, but yeah, I think the Steelers are also definitely a wild card contender, and I mean they have Mike Tomlin. They're gonna go 9-8 again, so there's nothing crazy about the Steelers. But George Pickens and everything with that offense, it's kind of fun to watch with Justin Fields instead of like Kenny Pickett. So next, this was a weird game. Jaguars Dolphins. Um, I know that obviously Dolphins played last night, and we're gonna get into that. But the Jaguars also just I don't know why they just weren't passing. They never had the ball really. They didn't have a lot of time of possession. Um, ETN and Bigsby splitting carries was not something that I was worried about. Bigsby maybe taking a few carries, but they split dead even carries. Um, ETN did get the touchdown, which is nice if you have him in fantasy. Uh, but other than that, this game was really, really strange. Like the Dolphins only scoring 20 points. Um, and then the big touchdown to Hill, which really changed the game, I feel like that was also surprisingly his longest touchdown of his career. I did not think that was
Yeah.
the longest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a bit of an interesting game. I think if you're a Jags fan, you got to be happy with how Trevor Lawrence played. Um, his stats weren't amazing, but he looks every bit the part of the quarterback that you paid that kind of money for in the offseason.
Yes.
Um, so I think he really has an opportunity to take a step forward in this season and prove that he's in that top tier of quarterbacks. For the Jags, Brian Thomas Jr. We had that 30-yard, I think, touchdown from T-Law to BTJ there,
Yeah.
over Jalen Ramsey too. So I think for a first game, he looks phenomenal. He's a big physical receiver, but he runs routes really well for a guy who's 6'3", 6'4". Um, he's a bit like a budget Marv, if you want to think of him like that. I know you disagree, but um, yeah, he's the kind of guy that can really provide Lawrence with a type of big receiver that he hasn't really had. Um, it was interesting to see Ingram with only one or two catches, I think.
Yeah, I think it was one catch and
Um,
like three targets. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Tight ends as a whole did really bad this first week. I
Hmm.
know we had Isaiah Likely with that big game, but tight ends for sure definitely did not live up to the hype. When some of them likely aren't not likely, Andrews, Kelsey, Kincaid, McBride, they were all drafted so high in
Yeah.
fantasy leagues this year. Um, but yeah, this wasn't anything special in this game. I don't think it told us a whole lot. ETN and Bigsby splitting carries definitely would have me worried as an ETN owner. But I know ETN still had the bigger part of the snap share, um, and he had the touchdown. So if I have ETN, I'm not worried that he's gonna, you know, lose half of his production. But I think you definitely need to kind of temper your expectations from possibly drafting a top five running back to, this guy's going to be high floor, he'll be productive, you know, high RB2 type season.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. For everyone wondering why he's so high in Brian Thomas, he that's his sleeper of the year. Um, we have your another one of your guys, Anthony Richardson, Texans Colts. I'm I'm just gonna say that throw was ridiculous.
That was insane.
That is candidate for throw of the year. Like a back-footed 70-yard dot. I He's like one of like three people in the league who can make that throw. Like him, Allen, and Herbert maybe can make that throw. Um,
Yeah.
I wasn't really impressed with Richardson the rest of the game though. Hit only 9 completions. Obviously, um, he's not your typical type of quarterback. Even with like Lamar, he's not even like at Lamar's passer level. He's definitely more of just a runner. He's just an athletic freak of nature. Um, but he did look. He had flashes, and I mean, they didn't even have to use Pittman or Taylor like that much. Taylor did get a touchdown, but other than that, he was pretty quiet. Um, but big thing, the Texans. I Diggs with 2 touchdowns is great to see. I know Diggs always starts off hot and then doesn't really do well at the end of the season, but having 3 wide receiver 1s on your team plus Joe Mixon and then CJ Stroud and Dalton Schultz, this offense is this offense is elite.
Yeah. This Texans offense can really take off this year for sure. I think Stroud is, again, another guy like Trevor Lawrence who can really kind of cement himself in that upper tier of quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
And now that he has legitimate weapons, we have Nico Collins with a big breakout year last year. Um, it was definitely encouraging to see Nico. If you're a Nico owner in fantasy, uh, he had I think nine targets this game,
Hmm.
so you know that volume's guaranteed. I think he'll be probably the highest floor guy of all the Texans receivers. Um, so they'll definitely be good this year. As for the Colts, man, Anthony Richardson, he's just so talented. Again, that's what everyone's been saying about him is that he's just raw talent. I
Yeah.
think he has accuracy issues for sure. But again, I think a lot of people forget that he only played 4 games last year. So he really hasn't had a lot of time to develop. He also didn't stay at the University of Florida for all 4 years. He left early, so this guy is really raw talent. He's young. He has a cannon for an arm. Uh, Somewhat similar to Josh Allen in like his rookie or sophomore year,
Yeah.
um, where if you remember, Josh Allen was wildly inaccurate. He was completing 55% of his passes. Really nothing special. But I mean, Richardson, if he can really get his accuracy problems down in the intermediate parts of the field, um, he's going to be a problem. I know they drafted A.D. Mitchell in the second round of the draft last year. He got open 3 or 4 times on a
Mhm.
deep ball, and Richardson just missed him. But they
I
had a
don't know
couple
how
shots in that.
he overthrew him. Like that is
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't know, but they had a couple shots to A.D. Mitchell where they could have been touchdowns easily.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I think it speaks volumes to the game so close, the score against a team like the Texans. And I think this Colts team is only going to improve. They have a pretty solid floor, I'd say, because their defense is solid. And then
Yeah.
they have obviously an incredible O line, and they have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So, and I think Shane Steichen is a brilliant coach. He's really giving Anthony Richardson the keys to his offense. And I think if Richardson can make a leap in his accuracy and his reads, which he should, because you know, second year, like he'll only get better. Um, this team has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I agree. That was a really fun game to watch. Raiders Chargers. Not that many stories in this game. I think the really big story in this game was the two big stories were J.K. Dobbins. He only had 10 carries, but he had 135 yards and a touchdown. Like that efficiency is probably not going to hold up. Um, but it's really encouraging to see, and he's going against the Panthers this week, which we'll talk about later. Um, and the other story on the other side of the football, Devonte Adams, um, not that productive. I know the Raiders are just going to be trash this year. They don't have Josh Jacobs anymore. Um, yeah, I just feel like these two teams are in the middle of kind of like a weird period where they have like talent, but not enough talent to actually make it, maybe even make it to the playoffs. So I don't really know what they're gonna do with their organizations going forward.
Yeah, both these teams are just kind of in a weird spot. At least the Chargers have their quarterback in Herbert.
Yeah,
I think the Chargers are definitely on the rise here. Harbaugh, it's only been one game, but it seems like this team's really rallying around him and buying into this Harbaugh identity. Um, I mean, for sure, this run game looks elite. We'll see how long J.K. Dobbins can survive on one leg, but
exactly, exactly.
Dobbins and Edwards both look great. Um, Joe Alt looks phenomenal. He went against Max Crosby and
Yeah,
completely shut him down. So he looks every bit the part of what he was drafted as. As for the Raiders, I don't even know, man. This organization is just a dumpster fire.
yeah.
They don't have a quarterback. Minshew is fine, but they don't have a real quarterback. They don't have much of a plan as an organization. Um, Adams is still a great receiver in the league, but at this point, it just doesn't matter. The team is just kind of stuck in purgatory here.
Yeah,
They're going nowhere this year.
yeah. It's kind of like the few years after Brady left the Patriots. Like they're kind of just like they have some
Right.
pieces like Adams, Crosby, but they don't have the quarterback. They don't
Doesn't come
have
together in
exactly.
any
Yeah,
meaningful way.
yeah. Next we had Broncos Seahawks. This was a competitive game for the first half, and then it kind of like the Broncos just completely choked. They just completely forgot to play football. Bo Nix did not look good. It is his first game, so I'm not going to panic on Bo Nix. I think he has the talent to be a very decent quarterback, as long as the Broncos surround him with decent talent and like a better line. Um, yeah, not much to this game. Kenneth Walker looked really good. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think the Seahawks are better than people think they are, but also they're in the NFC West, which is top two division in the NFL, probably behind AFC North. Um, yeah, I just don't see either of these teams making the playoffs, honestly.
I don't either. I mean, the Broncos for sure. They have no quarterback. Bo Nix, he could be amazing in a few years, but rookie quarterback. Again, he looked terrible in his debut, but it's his first game.
Yeah.
Who cares? Um, Other than that, the Broncos are they just need to rebuild. They have Sertan on defense, who is arguably the best corner in the league. But um, other than that, this team's just in a rebuild. We'll see where they go.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't take anyone on this Broncos offense for fantasy relevancy. Maybe Sutton, if you're in a gym and need Jaleel McLaughlin or Javonte Williams for a
Yeah.
flex, you could run that depending on the matchup. Seahawks, they just look all right. Again, they beat up on a bad team. Bo
Yeah.
Nix gave them 2 turnovers. Um, Geno Smith looks fine. You know, JSN, I'm kind of surprised, is not really commanding that many targets. It's only one game, but um, you know, yeah, the Seahawks just look fine, but
Yeah.
I don't really see them as a contender either.
Yeah. The Seahawks, I think the story of their franchise is just fine. Um, Cowboys Browns. I think this game had nothing to do with the Cowboys and everything to do with the Browns. Like I think the Cowboys
I agree.
are the Cowboys. Like they're gonna score their points. Deshaun Watson looked so bad. Deshaun
Yeah,
and they don't have Njoku anymore. Jerome Ford was okay. Amari Cooper didn't look very good. Overall, this Browns team, I don't know how far you can make it with Deshaun Watson as your quarterback because he already proved last year that he can't really lead this team. But you paid him so much money, so I don't really know
I agree. Yeah,
what your plan
I think
is.
at this point he's only on the field because of his contract,
Exactly.
and obviously that's a horrible contract. The most Browns decision ever to pay that. But yeah, Deshaun looks awful. To his credit, the O line looked awful too. It's tough against that Cowboys defense. They have a great D line. They have Micah Parsons. So, I mean, maybe they'll get better if they can play some better matchups here. But yeah, Deshaun looked terrible. I'd say it's probably too early for a QB switch. You got to wait a couple weeks. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. But I mean, in fantasy, I'm staying away from everyone on this Browns team pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe Jerome Ford, but really, this team is a mess. They need to get it together. The Cowboys, they looked good. They looked like the Cowboys. This is pretty much as close to a gimme game as you could get for them to start the season. They didn't really have to do too much. Um, their defense did a lot of the work, so their offense is pretty much chilling. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, the Cowboys gonna be good in the regular season. Probably gonna lose first round of the
Yeah,
playoffs. Um,
as usual.
Commanders Buccaneers. Last afternoon game on Sunday. I actually found this game pretty interesting. I like Jaden Daniels. I didn't love the lack of Terry McLaurin for the Commanders, but Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, that run game is going to be really good this season. But I'm more interested in the Buccaneers side. Baker Mayfield looks like a legit quarterback. Like he could be like top 10 this year. Like he looks so good.
Yeah,
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, both were elite. Um, Going back to Commanders, I would start anyone you have against the Commanders at at any point during the season. Any guy against the Commanders,
especially receivers.
especially receivers. Yeah, I mean the Commanders. I don't expect them to go far this season, but I do think Jalen Daniels is promising.
I agree. I have Jaden Daniels in fantasy, so I was definitely hyped to see his running potential. I think it may be tapped down in the weeks coming because the Bucks blitz at a higher rate than anyone else in the league. So with how bad the Commanders' O line is, he definitely got flushed out of the pocket a lot. But you'd love to see that elusiveness, that escapability, and that speed from Daniels, and
Yeah,
especially the red zone running with the 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson looks good. they did take a deep shot to Scary Terry um, right around the half. I don't know if it was coming out of the half,
Yeah.
but they tried a deep shot to him and just missed. I think we'd be talking a little bit differently if that hit. But as for now, I'm not too high on Terry. I think Daniels will definitely pass more and maybe run a little bit less in the coming weeks, especially with Kingsbury running the offense. They got to take some deep shots. That's what the air raid system does. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is just about Jane Daniels for the Commanders this season.
Yeah.
And then the Bucks, I completely agree on Baker Mayfield. He looks phenomenal. This team, a little bit reminiscent of the Brady team that won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on the same level. Obviously, Baker is not Tom Brady, but you see what happens when you give this roster a legitimate quarterback. The D line, the defense is solid. They're a little bit shaky on the outside with their corners, but they have Antoine Winfield on the back, and then they obviously have a great D line with Shoyinka and then Vita Vea and their big boys up front.
Yep.
So this team has a lot of potential. They could definitely win their division. Um, yeah, I think they're a known quantity, and they could surprise some people this year for sure.
Yeah. I really like what I saw from the Bucks last week. This is my game of the week here. Rams Lions. Um, Obviously the big thing. Puka Nakua going down. Um, Cooper Cup looked like 2021 Cooper Cup. That 14 catches, 21 targets. Not much more you can ask from Cooper Cup taking up the place of Puka Nakua, but I was really impressed by the Lions' run game. Um, they ran at ease, and I think it has a lot to do with the Rams' running defense not being the greatest. But I think this is just what Dan Campbell wants to do. I think he wants to be really physical and just run first second down, and make the defense earn it and like really work to stop them on offense.
For sure. It's definitely the loss of Aaron Donald for sure had a big
Yeah,
effect. This Rams defense is not the same whatsoever, but they're still a solid group. And I think we saw just the dominance of the Lions run game. We saw that Gibbs and Montgomery can both be fantasy relevant. They're both going to get enough touches. Dan Campbell just loves running the ball. That's pretty much it. Um, as for the Lions receivers, I was really surprised by JMO in this game. He led the Lions in targets with 9. He even got a carry on an end around. So I think if you have Amon Ra and Sam Laporta, I would maybe temper your expectations for the season. Again, only 1 week, but we saw JMO emerge as a real downfield threat here. And we know that Laporta and Amon Ra work in the slot and through the middle of the field. But I mean, if they can stretch the field with JMO and then just run the ball consistently and as dominantly as they do, then it's not a great sign for those other two guys. But yeah, and then Cooper Cup, I mean, without Puka in the game, Cup is just going to eat. There's no question about it. I think the bigger question would be who's going to emerge as the second guy in that offense. We know about Kyron, but I think if you are looking in terms of fantasy, you got to wonder who's going to be that second receiver to step up.
yeah. I don't think I'm probably not going to take any receiver from the Rams besides Cooper Cup. But I do like Colby Parkinson. I liked Stafford was definitely looking his way during that game. So if you need a tight end, if your tight end gets hurt, definitely check him out. Last game to wrap up week 1, we got Jets 49ers. Not much to say about this game, honestly. Jordan Mason looked really good. I was kind of expecting this, to be honest. I know CMC didn't play, and I thought it would be a little bit closer, but I think the 49ers are just too good. Their defense in my opinion, is the best defense in football. Fred Warner, um, yeah, Fred Warner just commands the middle of the field. That entire area is his. You can't do anything
Yeah,
there. Also, Aaron Rodgers' first game back from injury. There's not much. If you're a Jets fan, you can't expect too much. I'm still high on the Jets this year. Um, the Garrett Wilson connection, though, that looked really
yeah.
good. That's scary.
The Jets definitely have to, I think, prove it a little bit on this Sunday. I mean, we'll give them a break because it was the Niners, and that defense looked incredible. Like you said, Fred Warner was all over the field. He looked amazing. Um, I think for me, for the Jets, I would be encouraged because Garrett Wilson to in that Aaron Rodgers connection looks good, and then Brees Hall looks great. Um, if you have him in fantasy, he has a pretty solid floor. We know that. Um, so I'm not too upset with the Jets here. I'd like to see a little bit more from their O line, but
Yeah,
then again, it was the Niners, so you kind of can't. You have to withhold judgment until this Sunday. But it's definitely kind of a prove it game this Sunday for the Jets. As for the
yeah,
Niners, they looked like the Niners. Not much to say. Their defense looks great. You would hope CMC can come back in a couple weeks. Bit worried with the Achilles tendonitis. That's going to be a nagging injury. But Jordan Mason looked great. Honestly, I feel like I could run decently behind that O line.
yeah,
Like they're just so dominant up front. Um, it's really they'll be fine. If
yeah,
you're a Niners fan, nothing to worry about.
yeah. I think the Jets are playing the Titans this week, so
Easy
definitely
matchup
an
there.
easy
At least it
matchup for
should be.
them. They need to destroy them. Like they need to prove it to the rest of the league to be that they need to be feared, and that the other team should be scared of them. Okay, so that wraps up week one. Yesterday's game, Thursday night football, Bills Dolphins. The big storyline, Tua getting concussed, his injury. Prayers out for Tua. That it just sucks always seeing him like get concussed and get hit in the head like that. It just sucks seeing any player get hurt, honestly. But like Tua's injuries are always definitely scary. Um, Two other big stories though: the running backs for uh both teams, James Cook and A Chain. If you have either of them in fantasy, that is you that is great. Great start to the week. A Chain with 22 carries, 96 yards, and caught 7 passes on 7 targets for 69 and a touchdown. James Cook, we all know what James Cook did last night. 3 touchdowns in like 6 carries or 6 touches. He had a catch for 14 yards, um, 11 carries for 79. He only had 12 touches the whole game, but they didn't really need him in the second half. Um, yeah, this is where I wanted to talk about the Bills defense. They're legit. Like I don't they lost a lot of talent, but they looked so good yesterday, even with Tua in the game. Obviously when Tua was in the game, I wasn't really giving their defense that much credit. But yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with Tua didn't look great before the injury, like with the Bills defense. But they also are able to shut down the top options on the team. They have proven this year. They shut down McBride. They shut down McBride. They shut down Marvin Harrison, and now they shut down Waddle and Hill. I mean, I feel like that's all you can ask for if you're a Bills fan.
For sure. They did a great job shutting down Tyreek Hill. If you watched, they were double, triple teaming him, and even when he caught the ball, they instantly had two or three guys on him, so he couldn't escape and run after the catch. Um, yeah, I mean, you would have expected the Bills defense to look not as good. They were dominant a year or two ago, but they lost a lot of players. Jordan Poyer, they're missing their back safeties. That's why DeMar Hamlin's in the game. But they looked great. Taron Johnson's out too, so you would have expected them to lose a lot of their inside defensive capabilities, which again you would have expected Tyreek Hill and Waddle to feast off that, but they didn't. You saw Jonnu Smith get a good amount of catches there,
Yeah,
which I think speaks to the defense being a little bit vulnerable to that inside, those like seam routes. Um, I'd say tight ends could definitely hurt them this year without Taron Johnson there. He's the big guy that runs
Yeah.
with the tight end and plays inside the middle of the field there. But this defense is legit. They have big physical corners, rookies. They have Benford on the outside. So this team's legit, and yeah, they're gonna win games for this team.
Yeah. I'm high on the Bills. I think I have the Bills as my number one team, the AFC East now. I think they just passed the. I had the Jets over them, and the Dolphins, but with Tua hurt, I'm really hoping Tua doesn't play the rest of the season. Just for his safety.
Yeah, he,
Yeah.
he should just retire at this point.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Okay, we're gonna do a little game: overreaction or not an overreaction. We each came up with three claims about this coming season. I'll go first. My first one is Cooper Kupp will be a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy football at the end of the season.
Uh, Again, this definitely depends a lot on Puka Nakua's injury. I think the latest news is that he's going to be out for a bit of time here.
Yeah,
So if he's out for the better half of the season, I could certainly see this happening. If Puka's back in 4 or 5 weeks, I don't know. It also depends how some of the other receivers do. But I mean, without Puka, Cup just completely farms targets. 21 targets in a game is ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, but we saw what happens 2 years ago when you have no one else in that offense, and that Stafford to Cup connection is just unreal. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it's an overreaction. I would probably say if Puka's back in 4 or 5 weeks, then I don't know, but not an overreaction.
Okay. So you have three too. Let's hear your first one.
Yeah, so my first one is Anthony Richardson will finish as a top 3 QB in fantasy.
I know you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I'm gonna say this is an overreaction. Not because of anything against Anthony Richardson. I just think there's so much talent in the league right now. I mean, you have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, who I know can play a full season. I haven't seen Richardson play a full season yet. That's another big thing. And then
It's
you have
fair.
like other sleeper guys like uh Jaden Daniels, Stroud, Burrow, if Burrow figures out how to play football again. Um, I would say it's an overreaction, but if you said top 5, I would say not an overreaction.
That's fair. I think with the rushing upside alone, he definitely has more potential than some of these guys like Burrow or Stroud,
Yeah,
who I'd say Burrow, I don't know about Burrow anymore, but guys like Stroud or even Dak are pretty safe floors. Like I think they're going to be a top 10 QB, but they don't really have that top 5-ish potential, top 3. So I would say he definitely has a crazy amount of upside. Again, we talked about the like early career Josh Allen comparison earlier.
yeah,
If he figures out his accuracy problems, man, he's gonna be a huge problem. He could be Josh Allen esque. He's gonna have much lower passing volume, but if he can figure out his accuracy, he can definitely be kind of a budget Josh Allen and finish like QB3.
yeah. I could see him at QB3. That's probably his ceiling this year for me. My
I
next
agree with
one,
that.
my next one is about just football, not fantasy. The Buccaneers will finish first in the NFC South.
I don't think that's an overreaction at all. They looked fantastic. Uh, there's not much to say. I mean, um, they they did beat up on a bad Commanders team. I'll give them that. So their passing game isn't going to look quite as strong. The Commanders make everyone look great on passing, but this team's legit, and Baker Mayfield is that guy. We saw this defense look good um, again against the Commanders, but really almost all the Commanders' points came in garbage time. So this team's legit. The NFC South is not a great division,
Yeah.
anyways. So yeah, not an
Yeah,
overreaction.
the only team I could really see uh, getting over them is the Falcons. But the Falcons, I think, are definitely the more talented team. But I just think Baker Mayfield being on that has having already been on that team before, he already led them to the playoffs. And what I saw week one, I love that team going to the playoffs, winning that division. Yeah, what's your second one?
Second one is that Devon Achane will finish as a top three running back. Now, I wrote this down before the Tua injury,
Yeah.
so I don't exactly know how that changes with Tua out. I think defenses can probably clamp down on the running game more. We'll have to see what happens with Tua if he wants to keep playing. If the concussion isn't that bad, then he could be back in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But if Tua steps away, this is kind of a whole different question. I think Achane is talented enough that he could actually still do this even without Tua there. We saw in the first two games he lit it up in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And even on the last few drives with Skylar Thompson in the game, he was, pulling down some receptions. He was still getting good yards. I think he's just talented and in the perfect system with Mike McDaniel that this could realistically happen.
Yeah, I'm actually not gonna say this is an overreaction with the Tua injury or without the Tua injury. I think with Skylar Thompson, I think it might help him. I think he's gonna get more volume. Uh, and Skylar Thompson was definitely looking his way out of the backfield. I mean, Skylar Thompson probably isn't making those like 80-yard throws. You know what I mean? So I would say non overreaction. I could see Devon Achane as a top three running back. I really wanted him this year. Um, my last one, it's a little negative. The Bengals will miss the playoffs.
This is a tough one. We really don't know for sure where the Bengals are going to go after that first week. They just looked awful. But I don't think it's a crazy take. I mean, the AFC is competitive this year,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a lot of teams that are going to be looking for wild card spots, like the Chargers, even the Patriots could be in the hunt. Um, but yeah, I mean, this defense really doesn't impress me at all. They have Trey Hendrickson on the defensive side of the ball, but that defense is not scary at all. What really has carried the Bengals has been their offense and their passing game specifically. But they lost Joe Mixon to the Texans this year. Um, you're not running the same type of play action with Chase Brown in the game. Jamar Chase looked fine. It's hard to tell against Christian Gonzalez, but he didn't look incredible. You have T. Higgins, who's injured right now or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with that. But then also Joe Burrow just didn't look like that guy. Um, Obviously, we know Joe Burrow is a good quarterback still, but this team has a lot of holes to fill, and I'm not convinced that Burrow and Chase and maybe Higgins can really plug those holes and make up for the what's lacking in the rest of the team.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm not really confident in the Bengals anymore, especially after last year. I feel like even when Burrow was on the field, they weren't that type of team that we saw make the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I will have
Yeah,
the Bengals missing the playoffs because there's a lot of competition. Final overreaction or not an overreaction? Let's hear it.
yeah. So my last take comes off the side of that Bengals game, and it is that the Patriots will make it a wild card game. It's a homer take, but I think it's got a chance.
um, it's funny because as a Patriots fan, I really hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to be I don't want to be middle of the pack this year. Like I don't want to just make the playoffs not get a good pick. Um, I am gonna say that's an overreaction. I don't think we're gonna win our division. We're definitely not gonna win our division. Um, I think the Jets or the Bills, but both of them are gonna make the playoffs. It depends on if Tua's back, and then you got the Colts, you got the Jags, and then you have the AFC North. You have um the maybe the Bengals. But you got Ravens, Steelers. and like you said, the Chargers. So I'm gonna say it's an overreaction. I You can't go that far with this offense, honestly.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay, so now we got who are your top five teams after week one? I'll start at five. I have the Cowboys. I was thinking of not putting them on this list, but because of the playoff history and stuff, but I think they were perfect pretty much on every aspect of the game, even with special teams with that punt return. Um, I couldn't not have them on the list. I feel like they needed to be here.
That's fair. The Cowboys are super talented this year, as they are almost every year.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, on my list, I'd have the Cowboys probably at six.
yeah,
I'd probably have Cowboys Ravens at 6 and 7. But my number five is going to be the Texans. I
mm,
was really impressed with that offense, especially that O line. I don't think they were billed as a squad that's going to be particularly dominant this year, but I think they proved that they're a solid group, and that's all they really have to be, especially against a pretty solid Colts D line there. And then I think CJ Stroud is just trying to take a huge leap forward this year. He has so many weapons now. Mix in Diggs coming in, and then Dell's back, Collins back for another year. So this offense is going to carry, and then I think their defense is again nothing special, but they have Will Anderson, they have Derek Stingley, they have some good young guys that can really carry this defense to a solid performance, and I think that's all they need with CJ Stroud at the helm.
yeah. I actually don't have the Texans on my top five, um, but that's not to say anything bad about the Texans. It's just I think the the other teams are just better. Um, Surprising, you said you don't have the Ravens top five. I have the Ravens at four, the only team that lost the game that's on my top five. Um, I love this Ravens team. You know, I'm a huge Lamar fan. Um, I think their offense didn't even look that bad, and their defense is gonna be a little rough for the first few weeks because they have a new defensive coordinator. Um, but I I think the Ravens really getting down to the last play against the Chiefs. There's not many teams that can do that. So I think that's I'm still high on the Ravens. I'm gonna need to see a little more this week, but yeah, I think I'll keep the Ravens at four for now.
I don't think that's a bad take. Um, again, I don't love the Ravens because I think they're just kind of permanently stuck in that like just outside range. They consistently lose to Mahomes and the Chiefs. I don't know what it is that they can't get over that hump. It's probably just Mahomes.
Yeah, no
But
team's beating Mahomes. Let's be real.
yeah, that's realistic. Um, but I wasn't super impressed with Lamar. He didn't have a bad game, and he was definitely running for his life a good bit, but he missed those last throws in the end zone. I think he played fine, but in a game like this, I think I need Lamar to really take over. And then their defense was just not very good.
Yeah,
Again, it was the Chiefs and Mahomes, but their defense was not impressive at all. And even Derrick Henry didn't look especially great. Kind of looked like a shell of himself a bit. But my four team's going to be the Bills. Again, we saw
mm,
them just put up a pretty dominant performance last night on Thursday Night Football. Before Tua was out, they were already up 31-0 or 31-10, and that defense looks great, even with a lot of guys lost from last year, and with Taron Johnson out. But I don't think losing Stephon Diggs and losing some of the weapons here really hurts the Bills as much as people thought. I think Josh Allen is a good enough quarterback that he can really spread the ball around. We saw that last night. Pretty even target distribution. Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, um, Keon Coleman didn't get any targets because he was against Jalen Ramsey, but in the first week there he caught 4 or 5 passes. So I think everyone's going to be involved this year for the Bills. They're going to run the ball really well with James Cook. And then obviously you have Josh Allen, who's just going to quarterback everything. And this team's the real deal.
yeah. I do love the Bills. I wrote down my list actually before last night. I don't think I have the Bills top five yet, but I actually had them way lower than top five. I wasn't really even thinking of them. My number three is surprising. I know they should be higher. I have the 49ers. Um,
Wow.
I I love the 49ers. I think they're great. I think there's almost no part of the game that's incomplete. But if they don't have McCaffrey, I feel like the ceiling is limited. If they don't have McCaffrey, I feel like they won't be able to compete with the Chiefs.
That's not a bad take. I think
Yeah,
McCaffrey definitely adds an element to the offense that you really just can't replace in any other way,
yeah,
and just some explosiveness that you can't find anywhere else. But I also think that the Niners didn't look like the Niners in Week One.
yeah,
You had Brandon Ayuk drop or just miss a couple passes. Brock Purdy wasn't asked to do a whole lot. He was fine.
yeah,
But I think really the Niners, all they have to do is run behind that O line. I think McCaffrey will be back, hopefully sooner than later for them. But even if he's not, they still have maybe the best run game in the league. Um, and then this defense is just unreal. And Fred Warner, Travarius Ward, they really shut down the Jets offense, which we had high hopes for going into the game.
yeah, yeah. The Niners. Oh, like pretty much the only thing I don't like about it is no McCaffrey. It was week one. They're gonna have their struggles, but Achilles tendonitis just doesn't sound good. It sounds like that's gonna be bad. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And
uh,
then we have actually opposite things here. I have the Lions at number three, and then the Niners at number two.
yeah,
So we both like the Lions. Just flip there. The Lions showed us everything about who they want to be this year in that first game. They ran all over the Rams. Not the best run defense without Aaron Donald, but still, this run game is going to be great. They have two fantastic running backs. Uh, we saw they didn't even need to pass the ball that much. Jared Goff didn't really impress me, but he also didn't need to. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens when they get to a game where they get behind or they have to pass more. I think we saw the emergence of Jameson Williams. He looks like a legit downfield threat. He really stretches the field. So I'm impressed with them. Their defense didn't look amazing. They have Hutchinson on the inside. Their D line is solid. I'm not super impressed with them, but I think they'll be fine. And for the Lions, really their best defense is their offense because they're gonna grind the clock down with the run game,
yeah.
and they're just gonna grind out drives.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like you said, I had the Lions at two. I think just pretty much just because the run game is so dominant, it looks like. They're also just super talented. And then obviously we both have the Chiefs at one. That's no surprise. I think the Chiefs are really the only team this week to play a tough matchup and like do everything they wanted. The entire game was theirs. There was really never a doubt that they were gonna win this game. Um,
Yeah,
really until that last play, like the half a shoe size. Yeah, if you have anything to add on that, then you can. Yeah,
there's not much to add. When you have Mahomes as your quarterback, it's you're not going to lose a lot of games.
yeah,
Doesn't matter who you're playing. Um, I think it was interesting seeing Xavier Worthy be as effective as he was. I think he only had 3 or 4 touches, but two touchdowns. We saw that crazy speed from him.
yeah,
So we know that Andy Reid's going to scheme up touches for him. Um, he'll use his weapons. He'll find his weapons. Um, this Chiefs offense is as explosive as it's ever been. That's about it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say about this. Them being at one, everyone has them at number one. Even if you're a Chiefs hater, like we are, like I am. I know. I hate
Yeah.
the Chiefs, but I'm gonna keep them at one. Okay, we already went through injuries with Puka and Jordan Love, so let's just go over the key games for week two. We're gonna each pick who we think is gonna win one of these four key games. And then at next week we're gonna see who did better. First game, Bucks Lions.
I think if any team is primed and ready to handle the Lions, it's going to be the Bucks. They have a great run defense. This team is set up to beat the Lions. I don't know. This could really go either way. I'm going to take the Bucks in this game. This is kind of a bold pick, but I
Yeah,
believe in Baker Mayfield, and I specifically don't believe in the Lions outside corners.
yeah,
They have decent safety help, but I think the Lions are much better set up to uh, to play the inside of the field and to defend the run than they
yeah,
are to defend the outside. They'll probably bracket Mike Williams or Mike Evans on the outside, um, but he could still get some work done. And then Chris Godwin, I think he'll play more outside next week. And they won't try and run him into the slot,
yeah,
but I think this Bucks defense is set up to defend the run well, and if any team's going to do it, it's going to be the Bucks.
yeah. I have the Lions this week. Um, I just believe in the Lions' talent. I love Armstead. Um, for the Lions as corner. Um, I think that he can hold Godwin. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna have the Lions this week, just picking the favorites. Next game is Monday Night Football, Falcons Eagles. I have the Falcons. I think this is a bounce back game. I think they're gonna feed Bijan and feed Drake London. I just don't see it. That's gonna be really the only way they win, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're gonna do. They need to do that. They need to get them more involved in this offense.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles in this game. I think their run game with Saquon, as we saw, is just too good. I mean, the Packers have a better defense than the Falcons, at least up front. Um, and they got cooked by Saquon and the O line for the Eagles. So I think the Eagles will really run all over the Falcons here. Um, it'll be interesting seeing AJ Brown versus AJ Terrell. I think that'll be a really good matchup. But then again, we saw AJ Brown versus Jair last week, and he cooked him. So
Yeah.
I think this is a good matchup. This will probably be a good game, but I'm taking the Eagles here.
Yeah, so we're each different on those ones. Now we have our last game, Bengals Chiefs. I'm gonna pick the Chiefs. We've been kind of on the Bengals all day. Um, I this is gonna be a good game. Like I know it's gonna be a good game because Bengals Chiefs is always good. It's always entertaining. Always really competitive. That being said, it's the Chiefs. Like I can't. It's really hard to pick against
Yeah,
the Chiefs.
I agree. I,
Yeah,
I'm not going to pick against Mahomes. Maybe I would do it if the Bengals showed me something last week, but they just look terrible. Joe Burrow doesn't look like that guy. At least he didn't last week. And the Chiefs looked every part of who they're billed to be against a much better team last week.
yeah,
So hard to pick anyone but the Chiefs.
yeah. Gonna be a good game. I definitely watch for those three games. Um, okay, so we're gonna go into a little bit of fantasy football here. Um, Me and Owen compiled a list of our sleepers and then our must starts and must sits. For sleepers, we said Wandale Robinson, Lad McConkey, Devin Singletary, and Brandon Cooks. Wandale Robinson and Devin Singletary are playing the Commanders. Devin Singletary obviously can have the same type of game Brian Robinson did, and Wandale Robinson had 12 targets last week, so that's gonna be great. Lad McConkey is playing the Panthers. I don't really feel like I need to explain that. Um, Brandon Cooks, always a great sleeper. Brandon Cooks, I feel like for Dallas, he's
Yeah,
definitely like
I think the important thing in this matchup is that uh, Marshawn Lattimore is currently out with a hamstring injury.
yes,
Remains to be seen if he'll play, but even if he does play, he'll be shadowing CeeDee Lamb.
exactly,
And I mean, first of all, he'll probably get cooked by CD, but um, I don't know who their second corner even is. But They'll be on Brandon Cooks on the other
Yeah.
side. And I'm not super confident about that. Also, Tyrann Mathieu is injured,
Yeah.
so they could possibly be without some safety help over the top as well. So I think you'll probably see Brandon Cooks get loose for a few deep shots in this game. If not,
Yeah.
I think he has a pretty high floor in this game.
Yeah. Um, those are our sleeper picks for the week. Our must starts, we had Chris Godwin, J.K. Dobbins, Jordan Mason, Malik Neighbors, and Tyler Johnson. Um, my number one must start this week was Chris Godwin. Um, I literally just traded him, which really sucks. But this week he's playing the Lions, and they just gave up 32 points to Cooper Kupp. And what is Cooper Kupp? A slot receiver, and that's where Chris Godwin does a lot of his work. Um, there's not much to say about this. I think he's actually gonna have a better game than Mike Evans this week. Um, I don't really feel like they're gonna be passing for touchdowns that much. Um, but I know Chris Godwin's gonna rack up the receptions.
I like that pick.
Yeah.
I have Malik Neighbors and Tyler Johnson. The case is pretty simple for both of them. Malik Neighbors is playing the Commanders. If you had Malik Neighbors on your team, you probably drafted him high enough that you wouldn't sit him no matter who he's playing. But I'm really excited about him this week. I think against the Commanders, I mean, Daniel Jones looks horrible, but everyone eats against the Commanders defense.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Johnson is possibly looking like the number 2 wide receiver in LA for the
Mm-hmm.
Rams. So, I mean, the passing volume's got to go somewhere with Puka out. Um, I guess most of it is just going straight to Cup, but
Yeah.
there's someone else in this offense who's going to benefit, and I think it's going to be Tyler Johnson this week.
No, yeah, I like Tyler Johnson too. He looked pretty good last week too. Our must sits: George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Xavier Worthy, Chuba Hubbard, and DeAndre Swift. My number one must sit this week was Xavier Worthy. Um, I like Xavier Worthy. I think he's a really flashy, entertaining player. He also only had 4 touches and 2 touchdowns. That's not gonna happen every week. So yeah, I'm gonna sit him this week against the Bengals.
All right. I have Chuba Hubbard as my number one must sit. They're playing the Chargers this week. The Chargers defense looked better than we thought it would be. Khalil Mack up front is a force, even though he's kind of washed and old at this point.
Yeah,
But they have a good defense. Derwin James is back and healthy, and he'll help with the run too. I also just don't think the Panthers are going to have the ball much at all in this game. We saw what happened last week with the Chargers. They're going to run the ball, especially against a bad team. They ran all over the Raiders. They're going to chew the clock. So the Panthers are not going to have the ball. They're going to be playing from behind. Don't play Chuba Hubbard as their flex this week.
yeah. I will not be playing any players on the Panthers until they prove to me that they can do something, like anything. Um, for rankings, my QB1 this week is gonna be surprising CJ Stroud. I actually think I have the Bears over. I have the Bears over the Texans, but um, I think CJ Stroud is gonna throw for 4 touchdowns at 300 yards this week.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can see that happening, honestly. I like this matchup for the Bears, or for the Texans against the Bears, rather. Um, can definitely see that. My number one QB is Anthony Richardson.
shocking.
Again, I love him this week. I think with Jordan Love out, the Packers are just going to get decimated this week. They're going to turn the ball over with Malik Lewis. Um, the Colts running game is going to go crazy. Jonathan Taylor probably have a great game, but I think also Richardson's going to run, which will give him just that high floor. He'll probably have a rushing touchdown. And then I also think the Packers don't have the speed outside or deep to deal with the deep ball here. I think you have A.D. Mitchell, you have Alec Pierce throwing the deep ball like we saw last week. So at least one or two of those is going to hit for the deep ball, and the Packers just can't keep up on the outside. So I have Anthony Richardson as QB1 this week.
You do. Wide receiver one. We both have the same one. Cooper Kupp, Arizona. Um, Not much to say. We've been talking about it this whole show. Um, he had 70% target share last week, 32 points. I think he's definitely gonna do it again. Honestly, Arizona was not good against receivers last week. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, not big names either. But Cooper Kupp is a big name, and he's gonna be the wide receiver one this week.
That's about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He'll
There's really
feast this week.
yeah.
He's
Don't
gonna get.
overthink it.
He's a candidate for 20 targets again.
Yeah.
Easy.
RB1. This is why I didn't have Anthony Rich. This is not the only reason why I didn't have Anthony Richardson, but I did not have Anthony Richardson as QB1 because I have Jonathan Taylor as my RB1. Jonathan Taylor just. Jonathan Taylor is an amazing running back. And he's going up against the Packers who gave up 32 points to Saquon. Yeah, John Taylor's going to have 30 plus points this week, 150 plus yards on the ground. Definitely look for Jonathan Taylor. Definitely start Jonathan Taylor if you have him.
I love that pick too.
Yeah.
I think Taylor's gonna have a great game. I just don't know if he has that like massive blow game potential because Richardson could steal a touchdown or two.
Yeah.
That said, my RB1 for this week is going to be Brees Hall. Brees Hall is playing Tennessee this week. Not a great defense. We saw the Bears. I mean, the Bears didn't even have to score on offense and they beat them. But yeah, this Tennessee defense is not going to be good. I think the Jets are going to be looking for this prove-it game and they're going to be ready to go on offense. And Brees Hall is just going to run all over them. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Brees Hall is obviously just has the talent. So, I mean, Brees Hall being RB1 any week is always just a great choice. My tight end one this week is going to be Trey McBride. He wasn't amazing against the Bills, but he still had 8 targets. That's more than enough as a tight end. 8 targets. I think this offense is going to look a little bit better than last week too. Really not much. I feel like you can't really correctly guess this week on tight ends because no defense, like every defense was good against tight ends besides the Chiefs, I guess. And you're not going to pick who even is it Hayden Hurst for the Bengals? I'm not picking him for 10 and 1. So
I think so. Yeah. For me, I have Sam Laporta as tight end one this week. I think the Bucs are going to sell out to stop that Lions run game, and they're probably going to have at least a better job than other people with doing so. So the Lions are going to look somewhere else to get their points. I don't know how effective Jameson Williams is going to be with Antoine Winfield playing deep. I think you saw how the Bucs were kind of able to shut down like Tyreek Hill last year on some deep shots there. So I like the Lions working the inside of the field and the slot this year. This week, I like Sam Laporta. I like Amon-Ra this week. I think Laporta will eat.
Yeah. That is our fantasy. That's our fantasy little segment there. We're gonna wrap up the show with way too early award predictions. It's week 1, obviously we don't know who's gonna win, but we have an idea. My MVP, I'm basic. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's just the best player in football, on the best team in football. He didn't win it last year, which means voter fatigue really shouldn't be in play here. I can see the Chiefs winning 15 games this year. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, Mahomes is always probably the favorite.
Yeah.
But I had Josh Allen. I think the Bills have looked amazing the first 2 weeks. They're primed to win this AFC East division. And without Stephon Diggs, especially, you're really going to see Josh Allen shine through and kind of carry this offense. You saw him in the first week with 2 rushing touchdowns. I think his rushing volume will be good. He'll have a lot of rushing touchdowns, and he's going to spread the ball around. He'll carry this offense and this team to 13 wins.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Josh Allen is, I think I had him at 3 for my MVP. Offensive Player of the Year, I have Saquon Barkley. I think this is just the best situation he's ever been in. This line is really good compared to obviously Giants lines, if you even want to call it that. Yeah, Saquon Barkley, he looked really good in his Eagles debut. I'm gonna see him pulling the Offensive Player of the Year award.
I like that pick. If I had
Yeah,
to pick a second place, I'd probably say Saquon. But my first place is going to be Brees Hall again.
yeah,
Brees Hall looked fantastic in Week 1 against San Francisco of all teams. He's going to eat behind this line this year. I don't think the Jets have to be anything special in this offense, but they're going to rely on him. You saw the workhorse volume that he got in the first week. And that's going to continue. I just believe in the talent here. Um, yeah, Brees Hall's going to rack up the stats, rack up the receptions. He could be a sneaky candidate for like 2,000 all-purpose yards.
yeah, yeah. Brees Hall is definitely gonna have that type of breakout year this year. Defensive Player of the Year, we both have him. Everyone can guess who we have. It's T.J. Watt. He should have won last year.
Yeah,
Against the Falcons, he's scary. He's the best defensive player in football now that Aaron Donald's retired. He he pretty much has been the best defensive player in football for the past 3 4 years. Um, Not really much else to say. I mean, he's just that good. I
yeah.
honestly don't know what else to
He's
say. Yeah,
he's just him.
yeah,
It's just about time he gets that recognition.
yeah, exactly. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I was leaning between Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison, and I wrote down Marvin Harrison, but I'm gonna switch and I'm gonna say Caleb Williams. Obviously he did not have a great first week, but neither did Marvin Harrison, so I didn't really let that bias me. What I really love is the situation. Like I don't remember the last time a number one pick went into this type of situation with three really good wide receivers. Uh, DJ Moore is an alpha receiver. He's super underrated. Keenan Allen's obviously a little old, but he's still great. He's still Keenan Allen. And Rome Odunze, I was really high on this offseason. So it's going to be good to see what they can do on that offense.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think Caleb's just too talented to, have a bad season in that offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a solid pick. It's a solid case. For me, I have a bit of a sleeper pick here. I had Brian Thomas Jr.
You do?
Um, he is on my fantasy team, so I'm a bit biased. But I really do believe in the case here. I think maybe other than Marv, I don't think you saw a rookie on offense step into this much volume to start off. Uh, Not talking about quarterbacks, but I think Brian Thomas really stepped into that Calvin Ridley role this year. And you saw in the first game, he looked fantastic. I probably wouldn't have picked him if he didn't look so good in the first game, but you saw him catch a touchdown. Um, he has that guaranteed volume. He's going to be a downfield threat. I don't think he's the most talented receiver in the world, but I think he has that number one alpha receiver role locked down immediately. And that's kind of all we need here.
Yeah. I just have a tough time picking anyone but a quarterback because I mean last time this kind of happened Jefferson versus Herbert.
Justin Herbert, Jefferson.
Like Jefferson definitely should have won and Herbert.
That should have been Jefferson, yeah.
Yeah, so I've just been picking the quarterback the past few years. Defensive rookie of the year is definitely way harder. I actually said his name wrong a little bit earlier, but I have Terrion Arnold. Um, he looked good. He's super athletic and he can really cover the field. He's physical for the Lions. Um, there's not much else to it. He obviously played against Cooper Cup. I can't really judge him off that. Everyone's gonna get cooked by Cooper Cup. I don't really. Um, but he actually wasn't like Cooper Cup was even saying Terran Arnold is looks like a really really good future cornerback.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I think he's good. He's long.
Yeah.
He's athletic. It's a good pick. I have Byron Murphy.
Mm.
Um, he's a inside lineman for the Seahawks. I think he's in a great position. He's starting off rip, so yeah, he's like what's that guy that the Jags drafted last year? The the D tackle, whatever his name is.
Goodness,
I don't know.
we're casuals.
Yeah, we are casual. But yeah, I have Byron Murphy this year for the Seahawks. I think he's gonna stuff the run inside. He's a big body. Um, and I think he's a candidate for double digit sacks. And I think if he can reach double digit sacks as a tackle, then he's got this award locked up.
Yeah, if any rookie tackle gets double digit sacks, they're gonna win rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Um, Now we got comeback player of the year. The obvious pick's Aaron Rodgers. If they make the playoffs, he'll win comeback player of the year. I just want to give a little like shout out to Anthony Richardson. I mean, I know he can definitely get comeback player of the year too this year. But I think the Jets are gonna do better than the Colts. I think that's gonna really push the vote. So I'm gonna keep Aaron Rodgers as comeback player of the year.
I have the same pick.
Yeah,
Easy, obvious one.
yeah. I mean,
Don't overthink it.
I I like being adventurous, but there's like literally no reason to not pick Aaron Rodgers. Coach of the year. We have different ones here, but I had Dan Campbell. I think the Lions are going to be the first seed in the NFC. I think that I have them in the Super Bowl actually this year. So yeah, I think Dan Campbell is going to get them to 13, 14 wins. Even if it's like not doesn't seem like the best number one seed season ever. I think the voters are going to give to Dan Campbell.
I like that pick. I think that's probably the favorite here.
Yeah,
You know, definitely a candidate for 13, 14 wins. Enthusiastic guy. The voters like him.
yeah, exactly.
I went with a bit of a sleeper pick here, if you will. I have Jim Harbaugh for the
Mm.
Chargers. Um, first year as a coach, coming from college. I think this team is really kind of revitalized under him. The new identity. They're grinding in the run game. It'll definitely depend on how the team does. But if they can make the playoffs, if they can pull a wild card spot, I could definitely see him winning the award. I think the voters like him. He has a good story. You know, everything along those lines are kind of going his way. And then, this Chargers team was expected to win 6 games this year. I
Yeah,
think if they can go like 9-8, he'll definitely win.
yeah. If they make a wild card, I think he definitely wins Coach of the Year if they make a wild card. Okay, I think that's all we have to cover before week two. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram. I'll put the link somewhere. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.